Hi, my name is Caitlyn Black, and I'm a junior studying culinary science with a minor in meat science, and today I'll be making a white wine sauce with mushrooms to go on top of a pork loin. To begin this recipe, we're going to split it into two parts. The first part being sauteing the mushrooms and onions together, and the second part being making our white wine sauce. So to begin the recipe, we're going to dump in our 2 tablespoons of olive oil into a skillet over medium-high heat. And then we're going to dump in our onions. And kind of move those around. We're going to add our salt and pepper. Teaspoon of salt and our half a teaspoon of pepper, and this will let the onions sweat a little bit. The salt will help pull the moisture out of the onions, making them a little more tender. Okay, so our onions have kind of become a little translucent, and now we're going to add in our mushrooms. Kind of just stir those around so they all get equal heat here. We're going to sprinkle in our thyme. The reason we're using olive oil as opposed to butter or another fat to saute our onions and mushrooms is because olive oil has high unsaturated fat content, and it has a lower smoke point than butter. So if we were to use butter in this recipe, you would just have to be really careful about the time and temperature that you are sauteing your vegetables at, because butter will begin to degrade and become browned butter and potentially burnt butter before your vegetables have become tender and cooked. So we use olive oil because it has a lower temperature smoke point, so that we olive oil doesn't burn and doesn't give off an off flavor. Okay, so now that our mushrooms have sauteed down a bit and our onions are very translucent, we're going to transfer all of our vegetables into another holding tank while we make our sauce. We'll return these to the sauce after we have done a couple steps. So we'll just get all the onions out. Okay. Okay. Alright, now we're going to reduce our heat by a little bit to over low-medium heat. And we're going to add in our butter. Start to melt that a bit. And once we get that kind of going, melting a little, we're going to first make a roux, which is equal parts fat to flour. In this case, we're using butter for the richness and flavor that's going to impart into our sauce. Since we're making a cream sauce, it'll be a really nice component. Okay, so now that we kind of have that melted, alright, now we're going to add in our flour. And you want to be continuously whisking so that you don't get any clumps. You're going to add it in slow. Again, this is called a roux. And right now we're making the paste. And we're going to cook this little bit till it has a light brown color. So we're making a blonde roux. There's 3 different types of roux: a white, a blonde, and a brown. So we're making a blonde. By cooking it a little longer, we're going to impart a little more nutty flavor and different flavor profiles into our sauce, as opposed to just adding in the flour into the butter. And then slowly add in our chicken stock. Half a cup here. And you just want to stir and whisk so that you don't get any clumps. And as you can see, that roux is really taking on that liquid and thickening up very nicely. Alright, and at this point we're going to reduce the heat. Alright, now we're going to add our wine, half a cup, and whisk in that very nicely. Alright, now that we have whisked and our sauce is all incorporated, I'm going to turn the heat back up just a little bit, and we're going to add in our mushrooms and onions back into the sauce. We're going to let this simmer a little bit. We use Chardonnay wine as my dry white wine, and it is from the Burgundy region in France, which is eastern France, and it was made from a green grape variety, and it has a neutral flavor with hints of oak in it. It's processed without the seeds or the skin, which is why it's a white color. Wine gets its color from the seeds and the skin, which is why some white wines can be made from red grapes. And we're going to add in our 1/3 of a cup of cream, just as a nice finish to our sauce, make it more rich. Okay, and you can just keep this on medium-low heat until you're ready to serve. And so we'll be serving this sauce over a pork loin roast that I have in the oven, and with some garlic mashed potatoes and roasted broccoli. I hope you really enjoy this easy, simple sauce that's great for any weekday meal.